Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 95 of the Podcana podcast. This week, we're going to be covering I believe, a 400 plus player event, Moyen, that took place this past weekend within Italy. We have some news to cover in terms of new team members joining the Ravensburger North American team, specifically impacting the competitive play section. We're going to be highlighting and discussing some of the previous matches and results from the LCCC. So before we jump into it, as usual, I want to give a huge shout out to Vault X. They are an official partner of Podcana. My personal choice when purchasing Vault X binders is their Exotech Zip Binder XL. It's a 12 pocket binder with 26 pages holding 624 cards. It has a 12-month warranty from the date of purchase. You can use our link down below in the video description if you want to save yourself some money when purchasing from Vault X. You can also use code PODCANA at checkout. So, Moyen, how have you been? The first thing I want to ask you about is, how has the initial week on Metafy been going? Because I know that's something we talked about last week that you decided to set up and stuff like that. You took a lot of time to write out your blue steel guide. You wanted to make sure that it was as detailed as possible. And yeah, how have you found the Metafy experience so far? I know you've done coaching and stuff with various different people before, but is this like your first time actually writing a full guide for kind of a deck?
Yeah, no, it was my first time, so I was like, for a while I wasn't sure if it's good enough, if I can release it like this, but then if you wait so long, then some of the information also is already outdated, and you have to keep changing it without it even being released. But in the end, I finally released it, just saying, okay, regarding matchups and everything, I'm also doing some updates. I already updated Red Blue. I think I'll do an analysis of the LCCC match against Stan from yesterday for the mirror. And so far, I'm very, very happy with the support, and also got a lot of good feedback on it, so I'm very happy about that.
Amazing, yeah. If you guys do want to receive coaching or check out any of Moyen's guides, be sure to check the video description for his Metafy link. Some other news just before we jump into things. I was at a tournament this past weekend. It wasn't for Lorcana, unfortunately. I know, Kawa's a traitor. It was for Star Wars Unlimited.
No, you would be a traitor if there was like a Star Wars event, if there was Lorcana event, and you choose to play Star Wars instead. If there's no Lorcana event, you're free to play Star Wars.
I mean, I will say this Italian event we're going to talk about, it was in Milan the same weekend, but yeah, no, like there was there's a Star Wars Unlimited tournament. It's basically the equivalent of like a DLC. It was smaller. It was only a 500 player event, but I've been playing Star Wars Unlimited since set 1, and I wanted to kind of test myself at the competitive scene for that game. The first day I went 6-3. You had to go 7-2 to make day 2, unfortunately, but I had a lot of fun. I'm going to be attending another DLC-like event for Star Wars Unlimited this weekend. I'm going to go with like Specie and stuff like that, so it should be a good time. And I also met 1 or 2 people who play Lorcana competitively at that event as well, so it was just nice to see some familiar faces. Moyen, have you heard the news about this new hire within Ravensburger NA, or is this the first time you're hearing about it?
No, I have heard about it, but I'm not always great at knowing, okay, what does this exactly mean? What is their responsibility? What does this mean for like competitive play? When will we get any news? Does it get delayed now because someone new is working there? Does it mean finally we're getting some news quicker? I have no idea.
Sure. So I'm going to switch over scene here. I'm going to just read this out for the viewers. So this is posted by Card Market Lorcana on Twitter. Shout out to Card Market. Great place to buy your singles. But yeah, basically they just kind of took the message that was posted in Discord and put it on social media so it's easier to view. So this is a message from Steve Cooper, who is the new Senior Tournament Operations Manager. I'm just going to read it out for the listeners. It says, I'm Cooper and I'm the new Senior Tournament Operations Manager for Disney Lorcana. I've been collecting and playing as much as I can Lorcana since it released, and my family is big on everything Disney. I've been in the esports and event industry for over 10 years, but I'm excited to bring the digital and physical knowledge together. I'll be looking to take a much more active role over the coming months with you all, and can't wait for many more years of exciting news. So yeah, like you mentioned, Moyen, it's like, what does this actually mean? Like, how much does this benefit us? And I'm hoping it honestly just means more consistent communication, more consistent events. I mean, this is just more people overseeing the tournament aspect and the competitive play aspect of Disney Lorcana. So it's definitely going to be a positive moving forward. I think I briefly looked into Steve's background. Obviously, he says he has a background in esports. I think he was part of the like Smite esports team. I've never played Smite, but I know that like that was a pretty big game for esports at a time. So this is somebody clearly very, very experienced coming into the kind of TCG realm, and I'm excited to see what they're going to bring. Honestly, like I would love for someone like Steve here to do, I mean, it's like these types of things happen already, right? But like, you know, quarterly updates or announcements talking about competitive play, like just like a little bit more communication focused on that aspect, rather than just waiting for all of the big official announcements. I know that's always a tricky thing to manage, but I would like this person to be like the go-to person that when they speak about things, like this is the competitive play person, right? You know what I mean? I would really like somebody to kind of take that mantle on the Disney Lorcana team. So hopefully that's Steve. With that, we're going to move into our Spilled Ink section. This is our listener question section. If you guys want to have your questions read out on next week's episode of the podcast, be sure to leave a comment down below. Moyen, would you mind reading out the first one here?
Sure. Well, no, don't make me read out that one. So, Radio Django comments, Moyen is my favorite player, but damn, he sounds like he has beef with Zan. I don't think, maybe it can look like beef. To me, it never really was beef. It was more like, I guess, a couple things that happened recently I wasn't in love with. So, like, I spoke about those, but then coincidentally, they were, like, happening, like, the last few weeks. So then I said something about every week. But I don't have, like, a personal issue with Zan. Mm-hmm. So it's all good from my side.
Yeah. Honestly, the reason I wanted to bring this up was because I figure a lot of people probably from the outside looking at this, it can look like these things, you know, from the outside for sure. But for me personally, I've hung out with Zan in person a lot. We actually spent like a day in Disneyland Paris together. Zan for me is a super, super, super nice, chill dude, and he's a great card game player. You know, I think I was only talking to, like with Moyen about this earlier, where I think when people disagree on things, like myself and Moyen disagree on stuff when it comes to Lorcana and card games all the time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we dislike each other or hate each other, right? Like you can have disagreements, and sure, you can have like heated moments, but the goal of these types of things is to, you know, maybe just have a discussion and like share your thoughts and listen to each party. And yeah, like listen, moments happen, memes are made. I think, you know, the 50-0 meme, it started from, you know, I think I said this last time, like Moyen made the point of, you know, this is something that he was pointing out as like, you know, this isn't really great to do, but of course everyone's going to jump on and meme about it at the same time. And now we have this fantastic meme within the Lorcana community. So in my mind, something funny and great has come from it, even though it was, I understand how seriously you were speaking about it, Moyen, but yeah, you know, it's nice to have a bit of laughter from it, right?
That was the thing. It was always like widely regarded as a meme, and to me, I wish it wasn't a meme. I wish this was just like, hey, this wasn't the greatest thing to do. Let's move on from there and maybe not do it again. But then as soon as something's a meme, it stays a meme, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's like if I had like another serious take on it, it would just get memed again. But now it's no longer 50-0, it's 15-2, so the meme's gone and we're good to go. Sure.
The next comment that we have is from Phil, who's actually the head judge for the LCCC. He just says that the Zan list swap had him like, what the heck? What a weird situation. Do you want to explain? Do you want to explain what happened? I think this is in relation to the previous thing, right? That you talked about with Zan and the changes with Zach. But there was something that happened during your game, right? And do you want to just speak about that? What happened?
Right. Yeah. So the thing that happened last week, I explained it last week. It was just like there was a lot of confusion because it was all cleared with Pavel, but during the match, no one knew that, and then Pavel was already asleep. So like that also was very confusing. And then so now I played against Zan, and they were just coming back from a long event where I think they got sick, like their flight was cancelled, they didn't sleep a lot, and
Oh man.
so after the event, there was just a single card that was wrong in their list. So they had an Ariel in their list instead of the 4th that the Storm Mage on.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as they visioned, or like they found it off a vision, they realized, oh, I don't think this should be in my deck. Double checked it, called the judge. And the funniest thing was, like, I don't think you would ever do this on purpose. So first of all, I didn't love how quickly part of the community in chat was to turn into, oh, you're the cheater. I understand that, okay, the way Zan called out the incident in his previous tournament where their opponent drew 8 cards, not leaving like a shadow of a doubt on whether it was cheating or maybe an accident, which I think there's always this kind of shadow of a doubt. Of course, that made it look worse, but for me, there's no shadow of a doubt that's accidental. There's no reason to, in open deck list, put in a different card and that then, as soon as you're using it, is going to get caught. So I don't think it's cheating at all.
And he also, he's the one who brought it up, right? Like, he was like, this card's in my deck. It's not supposed to be in my deck. So, yeah. And
the only thing was then the head judge had to handle it. And usually it would be a game loss. But I'm happy it wasn't a game loss. I think it's completely fine. I didn't want, like, I don't like when the decision's up to the players. I always think the judge should decide. Don't make the players like don't force oder more personal film decision. So it's okay. I was like, okay, whatever you do, I'm okay with it, but I don't want to be the one deciding, right? Just do your judge call. And normally it would be game loss, but they said, okay, this would be just very anticlimactic for the viewers, and this is basically an event that is for the viewers. So then we just said, okay, we'll continue playing. But then the initial judge call was, okay, now instead of the Ariel, it will be used as an ink proxy that can be used only to ink and nothing else. But then, okay, I was not okay with that because it was in place of a Storm Mage on, which is a bad uninkable card in the mirror matchup. So if you suddenly are allowed to ink this card, that improved your deck. That cannot be the right thing. So
and Ariel herself is already an uninkable card, right?
Yeah, that too. So it would be like a card that you can only use to ink. So I was like, okay, I let's just say he doesn't take it off vision. It's on the bottom of the deck, and we can immediately exchange it. I think the final judge call was okay. He can only use it, ink it with T-Point Quill this game, and then after the game we'll just replace it, which I think is completely reasonable. There was another thing where I think a damage counter was missed, but we all missed it. Then took one, didn't take the 2 damage from trading into a Cogsworth, but 1 instead. They missed it, I missed it, the judge missed it. But then after the match, I looked at the comments, I was like, yeah, there should have been 2 damage, but in the game it didn't matter at all. And I'm sure that was not on purpose either. And so basically there was and then on top of that, we also talked about our lists. We had heavy disagreements on Cogsworth and didn't like all the arguments that were brought up. But in total, it was just a lot of stuff that added up to, I think, maybe a slight bit of drama for the match, but also I think I assume it must have been a good watch for everyone as well. But in total, it was just lots of small things kind of adding up.
Sure. Yep. The next comment is from Samod. They say, great pod as always, guys. Still the best Lorcana content channel on the platform. Baker is sick too. I don't know how I feel about an online client. We have a fantastic in-person scene in South London, and I could see an online client taking away a significant amount of players. I can understand the point that this person is trying to make, because I think at a stage as well, when we had the unofficial online client, I was probably playing a little bit more at home, maybe, if it's a Saturday. Well, especially because those, we used to have the tournaments and stuff on the Saturday, right? We used to have some of the ones that you got to compete in, Moyen. So I was like, oh, you know what? I'll just jam on this. I'll practice. But ultimately, I personally think, and I would imagine majority of the community would agree, that it would just be a benefit. The idea of a digital online client isn't to take players away from the local game store. It's to encourage them to go to the local game store. And that doesn't mean, because there will be certain type of people that, okay, like, sure, they won't go to the local game store and they'll just play the digital client most of the time. But then when it comes to set champs, or if it comes to anything else, maybe they'll go practice. And that's people's choice, and that's what they want to do. But ultimately, a digital client would encourage overall accessibility, allow new players to try out the game. Those new players who are then trying out the game, if they want to actually compete in in-person events, at locals, at set champs, at the LCs, will then go out and buy physical product. So I think the entire point, especially from a business perspective, is this would encourage the generation of physical sales, right? Mm-hmm. And to players that may not really make sense, because like, sure, I can imagine a lot of players will, like, sure, they'll just play the digital client and maybe they won't get the physical stuff that much. But we're competitive players, and that's what we're thinking of, right? Like, I think a lot of people say, I'll be the most. I mean, there's the thing for digital card games, right? It's like, oh, I'm a free-to-play player, right? In physical TCGs, you can't really be a free-to-play player. Even, the closest thing is like, okay, your friend just hands you a competitive deck. That rarely happens, right? So I think there's this mentality of, for like digital card games, yes, there's people who will try to play without spending any money because free-to-play games are like so popular, right? So I still believe firmly, though, that if we did, and I believe when we get a digital online client, it will just encourage the like physical sales overall. I'm curious. I mean, we've talked about this so much in the podcast, right? Yeah. But do you agree, or do you think you could see, like, do you see what this commenter is describing as a potential issue? I think it will happen, but I don't really see it as an issue compared to how many other people will be able to check out the game and find the game, right?
Yeah. So, right, to me, it's a digital client still like drives engagement for the game. Mm-hmm. And yes, there will be some players that will maybe then go less to DLCs, but there's also like a big portion of players that you cannot forget that are not able to or like always play regularly, mm-hmm. Or to attend some tournaments at the LGS regularly. For those players, if you then don't get to play it at all, they might drop the game entirely. Whereas if they get to play every now and then, where they have like a little bit of time off, that keeps them in the game, and then because they stay in the game, at times they will also find the time to then go to the LGS. So I understand how you can be worried about it, but I of course also agree. Like in total, I think it would be a net benefit.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Next comment is from Game Blouses 84. They say, I would also enjoy seeing others like JDZ and Kawa cast, but personally, Lorcana isn't the same without Villain. Yeah, I think it's fair to say, Spessy, I love you, but Villain's probably my favorite Lorcana caster, period. The energy he brings, like, not only the energy he brings, but like when it's like analytical, and when it comes to like describing a lot of the plays, he's also so good at that. So he's just like the whole package. He is like caster material for Lorcana. So yeah, JDZ is a name I've seen cropping up recently. I believe he casted your game, Moyen, right?
Yeah, they casted my game. They are also very energetic, and like I don't know, they make everything sound so epic.
Sure.
And I think that's like a really cool feature for them as a caster. And I mean, especially since we've had Bacon, there's mm-hmm. been a lot of positive comments about him. So it just makes you realize how well received he's in the community.
100%. Yeah, this is one out of many comments, by the way, that Baker had. So yeah, I know a lot of people are a big fan of him, as are we on the podcast. Next question we're going to get into is a little bit of a longer one. So I'll read it out, and then if you want to discuss it, Moyen, if that's okay. This is from General AMF14. They say, spilled ink question. Why does it seem like everyone is still favoring an item-heavy build for Sapphire Steel in comparison to a Kiwi Bird or Artiback-style aggro list? In my playtesting with the item-heavy builds that revolve around Oswalds, Queens, or even Scrooges, it seems as if all those decks are capable of is hitting on an item 25% of the time, and in return cycle your needed cards, Tamatoas, removal songs, other items, to the bottom of the deck, where they are never seen before you lose the game. Isn't an aggro-style deck, low to the ground, plays on curve, includes ramp and card draw, much more favored into this meta to outpace slower control decks, item-heavy Sapphire Steel or typical Ruby Sapphire, or go play for play with other aggro-minded decks, including Amethyst Steel, Amber Emerald, etc. So I guess to summarize that comment, the idea of like, it's basically just the idea of Kiwi birds versus the item-heavy builds, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the main part of this question is why shouldn't we play low to the ground over Oswald? I think you can play low to the ground over Oswald, but I don't think Oswald is like the best item-heavy deck list. I think I do think Oswald, while it's great against Ruby, but it has these weaknesses against faster decks, and especially against like early steel removal, and it doesn't contest the board as quickly. So if you're talking about Oswald, I can agree with your sentiment of the question, but I do think when you like they hit more than 25% of the time. I think that was like kind of downplaying the deck a little bit. But to me, the question is more like, why would I play Kiwi Birds when I can play like the item heavy list that doesn't play Oswald, which is like incredibly consistent and if played well, has like an incredible matchup spread where there's some close matchups, but there isn't really like a bad matchup. Or there isn't even a bad matchup. I feel like, okay, red, blue, some discard decks, Amber Steel, they can all be very even, or very close, but also very skill dependent and rewarding. But there isn't a bad matchup. And for example, that deck against like the aggressive blue steel deck also favors very well into that. So while the Kiwi Birds deck I think is easier to play, I do think there's not. I don't really see good reasons to play that deck over just item heavy blue steel. I think also Kiwi Birds doesn't play very well into Ruby Sapphire. I think Ruby Sapphire has like pretty good matchup against the Kiwi Birds as kind of the blue steel aggressive deck, and Kiwi Birds needs to play these high willpower characters to stand a chance against like the steel meta, but then plays white into the Ruby meta. Or into the big Sisus of Ruby Sapphire, and also can struggle with Rush Maui at times. So in total, like I honestly, the question makes sense, but it's just like the wrong question. It's like I don't think Oswald is the great deck to be talking about, and I don't think it ever was.
Yeah, it's more of like your version of blue steel versus the Kiwi Birds more aggro style, right? It's kind of what you're describing. Yeah, and I think what you said there makes perfect sense, right? Like you can't really have the best of both worlds. You can't have decks that, you know, let's just take Alice as an example. Obviously she has ward or whatever, but like she's high willpower, which means it's harder for even stuff like Bell to kind of trade into. But she has low strength, which means she's more vulnerable to like the Ruby removal in terms of, because again she has ward like the Sisus and stuff like that. So yeah, the only way you get around that is you play cards that have good strength and good willpower, like I don't know, like 5/5s or whatever, right? Like an
overstand character.
Yeah, exactly.
5/5 Scrooge McDuck.
A great card, yeah, for sure. So yeah, thanks for highlighting those points. I think that makes sense, and I still personally think that both versions of Blue Steel have their benefit. I do think that your one is, I do agree with you that it's a little bit more consistent against everything, but I'm honestly a really big fan of the Kiwi Birds deck, and I'm glad that it's still a deck that exists and that can be played within the meta.
Yep, I mean, I don't know. So I think I like that Kiwi Birds exists because it's like it gives you a decent deck that has a different play style, so that you're not forced to play this like kind of weird, hard to sequence Sapphire decks at times. But I do think it's always been worse over. Like I think at the highest level, it was never better than the slower variants of Sapphire. Interesting,
sure. The next comment is from Citizen Flabba. This is one of my favorite comments. We talked about this earlier. So I mentioned last week that Moyen has a sensor for seeing decks over 61 cards. So here's a new card idea from Citizen Flabba. Moyen's Sensor Core. If your opponent's deck has more than 60 cards, you lose 1 lore for each card over 60. So I would say like you start the game with minus lore. So now everyone's going to play, you know, like 70 card decks against you. So you're starting at minus 10 lore, Moyen.
Yeah, very funny. But this core, it's not my weakness. I don't play worse if I know you play 61 cards. I am all the more motivated. If I know you play more than 60 cards, I have hyper focus activated.
Mhm.
So I want to propose new design.
Sure.
Moyen Sensor Core. If you play it and your opponent, I don't know,
Has more than 60 cards.
can we check all the cards? Yeah, I guess if they have more than 60 cards, maybe, I don't know, gain 5 lore. GG.
Gain 5 floor. What would be funnier is, even though this wouldn't benefit you, it would be funny if Moyen Sensor Core makes them discard like whatever cards in their deck so that they exactly have 60, right?
Sure.
So every time they face you, they have to it's like a passive, it's a card that doesn't even come into play. It's the 61st card in your deck that comes into play at the start of the game that makes them go down to 60 cards. That's what it does.
Mm-hmm. Just discard some of those cards and then we can play a real game.
Yep. Sounds good. I like that design.
And then
Ravensburger,
the next comment is about the same thing. So Yubuk says, what does Moyen think about Hamza Khan red blue lists whose card number is always above 60 and sometimes above 70? From my own experience, I can say a lot of the time it's 72. the only enough on that, this is my biggest mistake. The only time I played over in America at the DLC, I was heading into the last round as one of 3 people on the highest seed, and we were all going to ID into seed 1, seed 2, seed 3. There was no reason not to ID. I almost got a game loss because I was late for the round where I wanted to ID. But I was like, okay, yeah, let's ID. And then after I ID, my opponent tells me I'm Hamza Khan. And I realized, oh no, you're the guy with the 72 cards. Check the deck list. And I was like, it's too late now. I ID'd. There's no turning back. And there was no reason to play the match, but if I would have known, I would have played it because there was not a lot to lose either. I was still going. If I got 2 out, I would still enter on very high seed, maybe a little bit lower. But I think if I knew, I would have played. So it was a very sad moment.
Sure, but yeah, if any viewers want to design that card for us, please make sure
some more sensor cores for submissions for the next pod.
Yeah, he'll use them as proxy. He'll use them as his ink tokens. Yeah, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, that was this building section. Thank you guys for the comments. That was actually a really good time. Good laugh for us this week. If you guys want to have your questions read out on next week's episode of the podcast, be sure to pop a comment down below. We are now going to move over to taking a look at the top 8 deck lists from the Spring League 2025. All right, so taking a look at the first place deck from this tournament. Moyen, it's a Sapphire Steel deck. No surprise there, but a bit of surprise for some of the inclusions in this deck. What are your initial thoughts looking at this?
Well, initial thoughts, I thought this was like super cool. I think I love this. Like I not that I think this is like immediately insane, but I like some of the ideas in here, and I think the main one to me is okay. They instead of the, I do love the T-Bow, but what this does do is it plays a lot of 1-cost items to more consistently set up the Scrooge, and then it's consistent in that idea because it supports the Scrooge as well with playing 3 zoos. And I think all of that's okay. The Smee is a little bit off, especially without Cogsworth, I think. I don't think this is like the greatest meta for Smee. I think there's a lot of 4/4s in the meta, and as soon as the Smee quests, it gets stormed a lot, especially when you don't play Cogs. Even with Cogs, I'm not in love with the Smee. So I don't love the Smee. I don't think the Benja is super impactful. The Pete can be alright against Amber Steel, but I've been a little bit low on it as well. Okay, but let's get to the fun part. There's no shiny Tamatoa as the win condition. There's only a single dime, because when there's no big Tamatoa, then having a little bit of reach is nice, but it's no longer like a big part of your game plan. And instead, it's kind of trying to to just gain that early board, play some 4/4s, sing the board away, and then develop manas. And I've always been of the opinion that you can just the mana is only good proactively. I think the deck's good enough proactively with the Tamatoa win condition, and the mech deck mana can really struggle from behind, and you're playing a lot of these games from behind, especially like when you don't open bell, or when you have like a little bit slower of a start, and then you have time to kind of swing the board back. So, well, I want to say I'm intrigued. I'm not in love with the entirety of the deck, but I think it's a super interesting build, and yeah, they got rewarded for their creativity in deck building, I guess.
Yeah, I like the idea of the aerial here, because I mean it makes sense as well, because like you mentioned, it plays a lot more one-cost items. So even if you're facing other Sapphire Steel decks, it's likely that you'll probably be higher on items than them most of the time, at least. And then with the one-off dime, that's perhaps like this deck's version of the big Tamatoa, and with the aerial having ward, it's like really difficult for other blue steel decks to interact with this card. I mean, once it's exerted, then like a Scrooge can just crash into it, a big Tamatoa can just crash into it, and like you mentioned, with no Cogsworth, it's like maybe a little bit weaker, especially if you want to keep the Smees around. But a cool version of Sapphire Steel, to say the least. Moving on to the next one, we have Ricardo. This is the second place list. It's a Ruby Sapphire deck. So initial thoughts looking at this deck, I mean, this just looks like DKP list with like what one Tremaine. What are the other differences you can see here, Moyen?
I don't know what exact card counts he's on right now, but it seems to be that main core game plan of a DKP list. The 3 Flavasham, 3 Tala, 3 Goofy, kind of having the full flexibility of which was best. I really like playing an Inkable 7 drop to provide the Singer 7 B prep mana swing. I think there's a lot of options provided in a very consistent deck with like the one Scar, the one Tremaine, the one Let It Go, the one Hideaway. So yeah, good to see the DKP list is still performing well. I do think like now I think it's like a fair deck in the meta, whereas last set it was like the best deck in the meta.
Sure.
So it has still fallen off, but it's still good to see it's performing well.
Yep. Next, we're taking a look at another Sapphire Steel list. So this one definitely more akin to kind of the Kiwi Birds list, but a lot of the key cards kind of missing from this, right? Like there's no Alice, there's no Pluto, but there's Hook as a 1-drop, there's Calhoun, there's Tala in here, which is quite interesting to me. How do you feel about this list compared to like the typical Kiwi Bird? Because I think Kiwi Birds is probably the deck you would compare this the most to, right? In similarity.
Yeah, I mean you could still call it this, but I mean I might favor this a little bit compared to like the normal aggressive Sapphire Steel versions. I think this is like kind of the core idea what Artavex has been liking, like maybe 1-2 weeks ago, where he's developed this like protect the mana at all costs, control mid-range aggro plan, where it's like you can be aggressive, but you also can be control-y, and then you can even against control decks you can go super long because you have so much refill, you have so much filter because you play Tala, Flavasham, Tamatoa, and then yeah, I mean I think this is a decent deck.
Yeah, I really like the look of this. This is something I would probably test out for, I don't know, like, because what I will say is, like, you know, for the past couple of weeks, of course, you know, we've been showing off lots of Sapphire Steel decks. So when I see a deck like this that's at least different in a good amount of cards, right? Like this seems interesting to me, and this kind of calls out to me as something I would like to test. So like if you're a Sapphire Steel player, I would encourage you to try a version like this to see if you like any elements from it, right? Like I think it's definitely worth giving a shot. Next we have this deck's from Jonathan Ray. Now this is more of the controlled Ruby Sapphire deck. Again, Moyen, I know you said it a lot. You do like to see the Scrooges in here.
I mean, I said that, but I'm less and less sure about it. It's like that was my intuition. I started testing it a little bit, but again, I'm mostly just focused on really fine-tuning Sapphire Steel. But from my limited testing, it does hurt this deck a lot more when you just don't get a card off your 4-drop, and then it's not super easy to build the deck the way you wanted to, and also providing enough hits for the Scrooge. So I still like the Scrooge, but I think Tala's completely fine. Like I'm less saying okay you shouldn't play it this way. I'm more saying I think there's two ways to play it, but I really like Tala as well. My main pet peeve from what I've tested is red blue. Is I think how far I go. I've said it in some other metas. In some metas I've only played 3 as well, but I think also with the coil it just provides so much, even in the late game where you can kind of like sing how far I go and get a coil trigger. Similar reason why I think the one Greatstone Dragon is making it into this list. But how far I go is like, it's not just good for that, it's just like good in a lot of stages for a lot of different reasons still. I like that people are playing Cusco now. I think when people were playing just Hideaway as the item removal, the matchup was a lot easier for Sapphire Steel, where they can kind of go Pete Dime in a single turn to set up some big win con.
For sure, yeah. I think it's important to highlight that, like, again, I don't wanna bring this up, but you know, your thoughts on the Scrooge, right? Like you were saying, this seems like it could be really, really good. You've done the testing. You know, I'm not trying to highlight anything, but the great Moyen can be wrong, and you know what, folks? He's not afraid to admit it.
Do you remember Mouse Armor? I thought maybe Mouse Armor.
Brendan slags you about Mouse Armor.
Yeah, I know.
So
he doesn't
much.
let me forget it. I didn't even say it was good. I was like, maybe. I was like, no, it's awful. What are you talking about?
Every time we see a new card, he's like, but what about Mouse Armor, Moyen? It's like,
he doesn't let me forget it.
No. I'm just glad we're past the days where you two are just, so Kawa, what do we think about this card, eh? What do we...
Well, we kept doing it, and then suddenly your takes kept getting better and better, and then it was no longer fun.
It was no longer funny when I was actually saying having correct takes, yeah.
Yeah.
I got you. All right, now it's the fun time, Moyen. Now it's my time. Now it's time for you to be quiet and for me to talk. No, I'm only joking. It's Amber Emerald, baby. So, my friend, shout out to Martin, he lives in Ireland, but he's from Italy. He went over to the Spring League. I believe he was casting. If he wasn't casting, he was most likely playing. And in our group chat, he kept tagging me, saying, Kawa, there's an Amber Emerald. And he's absolutely on fire. And honestly, like, my initial thoughts, as we were looking through the top 4, at least, like, we've discussed that, you know, the discard deck into the Sapphire Steel decks, it's quite even. The more I've tested it, I feel like I might have a very, very slight edge, but I think honestly that's just my affinity. I have to be brutally honest. I think that's just my affinity for Amber Emerald. But
no, we can play it again.
Okay. We'll try play it again, and we'll come back and tell the viewers the result. But yeah, no, like looking at this initial kind of top 4, I can kind of see why this deck has done well in this tournament. Not only going into the Sapphire Steel decks, which, you know, I think it does decently well against, but also this Ruby Sapphire specifically, you know, against the more control one, I think it's a little bit weaker. But in my testing, the Amber Emerald decks versus the DKP Red Blues has actually been like pretty favored in my opinion. And again, it definitely depends. I think Maui Shark is like the biggest threat. You need to be able to make sure you can remove that with like your Brunos and stuff like that. But for the most part, I look at this list, like honestly, this is probably an exact 60 of what I would play. Okay, I have to do the quick check to see. Yes, it is 60, because I cannot say that and it's over 60. This is like a really, really good version. Like, I think being on 3 Kita versus 4 Kita isn't that much of a difference too much. Like, usually if people want to add in like extra songs or whatever, they usually kind of cut like they go down to like 3 Muses or they go down to like 3 Kita. Most of the time I'm okay with that. Love to see the 4 Sir Hiss in here. Really like to see the 2 Cricky in here, especially if they're expecting a lot of the Sapphire Steels to be on Manners. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. Maybe they just put Cricky in as the 5-drop slot because it's like an okay card to use your cheap dudes to trade up. But overall, I really, really like this list. The 4 Painting the Roses, I think, is maybe a little too much, but I can't hate on it too much because it's also like just like a pretty good cantrip song. Love to see strike a good match. Ever since we had Bennett on, I've been testing Be Our Guest as a 2-of in my version of the deck, and I've been loving it. I think it's really good to be able to grab those key cards you need. Like, kind of, you want to get back into the game, you want to drop a Diablo on the board when your opponent has no cards in their hand. If you need to find the key to piece, if you're just going to need to find those pieces at the right time, I think Be Our Guest is pretty good. But Yeah, I mean, I will ask you more, like, are you surprised to see this perform well? And like, this is a large tournament. Like, what was this, 400 plus players? Like, I'm happy to see it.
434 players.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. I think it's one of the best decks of the format. It's just like, it is still super niche because it is very difficult to play and not a lot of people play it. But I do think it's a very good deck right now. I wanted to ask you. So if you were to submit Amber Emerald in this meta, would you be on Cricket or Lucifer or maybe a mix?
That's a great question. That's a really, really, really good question. And that's a hard question to answer, in my opinion. Because I know when we had Bennett on, he was saying, you know, you can really see the benefit of the Lucifer. The more I'm thinking about the Sapphire Steel decks, it's so tricky because there's such a split of like if they play manners or if they don't play manners. I think the safest option is probably the Cricky because you can trade up with the Cricky anyways. It's an inkable card, it quests for 3. I think Lucifer is definitely the more riskier pick, but if you decide to bring it and play it, you might be able to get rewarded from it a little bit more. So it's a bit of a riskier bring. I think 2 Cricky is very acceptable. I think you can be on a 1-1 split. I think 1-1 split's also fine. I think 2 Cricky is like safe, but I respect it. I'm not saying it's too safe either. So yeah, I would honestly, if I had to submit a list right now, I'd probably be on 2 Cricky because I just like it as a little bit safe. I've kind of had my time with Lucifer for a little bit in this deck, and I mean the thing about Lucifer as well is once it comes into play and it does its thing, like that's all you kind of want. At least like the difference with Cricky, there's a few differences. Like it's inkable, which is huge. It's a bigger body, which is also huge, and a quest for more lore, which is also huge, and it has a good on-play ability. So combining Lucifer with like your Prince Johnson stuff, you can be rewarded well from it, but it's more likely that Lucifer is gonna kind of not survive on board. Like you're rarely gonna have your Lucifer, you know, singing your "We Don't Talk About Bruno," right? Like Cricky is probably gonna be doing that or questing most of the time. So I think we're in more of a Cricky land right now for this. Would you agree, or would you still personally be on like maybe a 1-1 split?
It really depends on the meta. It's like maybe the more top end, high end competitive tournament, maybe the more I would tend to play Lucifer.
Sure.
And maybe in like a bigger tournament with like 400 players, for example, maybe I'd favor the Cricky because there's still a lot of like aggressive-ish decks or even like the McDuck mana aggressive blue steel decks.
Yep, I think that makes perfect sense. So yeah, once again, very happy to honestly, I know everyone's looking at Sapphire Steel. Give the deck a shot. As Moyen said, you know, it's I mean, I honestly, I'm curious that you say, do you really think, because I think some people will look at this and be like, oh, this isn't a difficult deck to play, you just play a card or discard and win the game. I think it's difficult in terms of that there's skill level to it, but do you think the reason why people don't want to play this is because it's discard and people don't like discard? Or like why do you think people don't want to play this deck? Do you think it's just bad because it has like so many other bad matchups besides like
Wait, does it though? Isn't it kind of fine against
I think it's fine against most. If it's like board based decks, I think it's fine. I think honestly its worst matchups are certain builds of control red blue absolutely obliterate this, but if you're against a player that doesn't know how to play that deck absolutely optimally, you can really punish them with the discard. I do think this is like pretty weak to aggro at times, but if you've got Crickies and like you know how to think about that matchup, I think you can win it, but I do think this is probably a little bit weaker to aggro. I'm just confused as to why people don't want to play this list as much, maybe.
I mean, I guess I haven't played it that much, even though I find it interesting, and the biggest turnoff for me is like some of the high variance between opening Diablo and not opening Diablo, and then playing Prince John on 3, you have Forgot Me on 4, and the games where you don't even have a John and you kind of like don't get to play the game as much.
Yep.
So it's like a big turnoff for me. But outside of that, when you do get to play the game, I think you have to like look a few turns ahead. There's some really interesting decisions on how you set up like the songs when you do sing them. I think there's so many options on what you can bounce with muses, and it leads to very, very different paths. And choosing the wrong path can easily lose you a game. So like the game also, like the deck punishes you a lot, I think, if you don't understand it well enough.
I agree. There's also times when like I mean, this is one of the hardest things I struggle with when I still play the deck to this day is you can be so tempted from like the insane value generation of like Muses bounce aerial, that you're like, against certain decks, you're like, okay, if I don't start just like questing with this aerial instead, or like, you know, like simply just quest and then sing and then bounce, you don't have to replay it this turn. Like those are important things that you might maybe start to forget, because then as soon as you start to get maybe too greedy with the bounces, maybe they can wipe your board. Most of the time it's fine because aerial will keep refueling your hand enough, but yeah, guys, like give this deck a shot. If there's a lot of Sapphire Steel, just try it. Tell me you hate it. It's fine, but just try it.
I wonder how many stocks you bought from Ember Emerald. You're selling it so much.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not the one to write a guide for it because I don't think I'm that skilled. I could definitely talk about the deck, but if Bennett has a guide, maybe I'll have to start linking it soon. Or if people want me to do something on it, let me know. But I don't think they will. I don't think there's gonna be enough demand for that. Let's just say. All right, next list. This is a Ruby Sapphire list. Is any sensors going off, Moyen? Any sensors?
No, well, now there's no sensor needed because why would you say this if there wasn't more than 60?
Maybe I could be baiting you. Maybe there is 60. Maybe this is not the list. Maybe I'm baiting myself.
Is it 61?
It's 61. Yep. It's 61, Moyen.
Yeah. Well, good thing I start with one lore if I play against this deck.
GG.
That's the Moyen sensor. What was it called again?
The Moyen sensor core.
Yeah, the Moyen sensor core. Yeah. Okay, outside of that, this is like
lots of 2-ofs I can see. Lots of 2-ofs, lots of 3-ofs.
Yeah, I mean, I like that we have so many options. I like that we have 4 vision in this, which the last one only had 3, I think, that we looked at. But it still wants to play the shark and have options in the removal, and that is a very difficult question for Ruby Sapphire players right now. Are they just okay with saying, okay, I'll set up a coil, I'll wipe your board with Sisus? Or do they want to have an alternative board wipe if they don't get to set up an efficient Sisu in the B prep? I think that's really interesting. And then the shark has its moments still, but in some matchups you just have to be very careful to not play it without rush, because it can lose you a lot of tempo.
That's actually a very interesting point, and I find like I didn't play a lot of decks that maybe forced me to have to just quest against the Maui Half Shark. Like I always was just like, okay, yeah, it's on the board. Like whenever it was played against me, it basically froze my board, right, and gave my opponent time to like do visions and search for stuff a lot of the time. But if there's so much Sapphire Steel running around, and if they have the tech cards in there like Zeus and stuff, maybe the shark doesn't feel as good anymore. So yeah, I think that's an interesting question that you pose, and I do think that the biggest advantage you can have out of something like a Maui Half Shark now is potentially using it with rush to like catch your opponent off guard, because your opponent's never going to play around. Oh well, they could have Maui rush maybe in a very like niche scenario, but most of the time they're not, right? Like they're going to just turn their card sideways because it could equally be Maui Hero to all rather than the Maui Half Shark coming down. So they have to kind of recognize, okay, it could be a rush card anyways, and it's context based. But yeah, it's just interesting if it's, I mean, it's obviously a good card, but depending on what your expected metagame is, and if they have answers, not specifically for the Half Shark, but you know, in these mirror matches against the Tamatoa, Happy as a Clam with like Zeus and stuff like that, maybe it's not as good. But then maybe only playing 2 of it in a deck like this is fine, right? Like you're not committing fully to it, so I think maybe 2 of it is just fine. But yeah, please change back to 60. I don't know. Do what you want. Do what you want. That's fine. That's fine.
Yep.
Okay, this one, we're safe, Moyen. We're safe. It's 60. It's 60. This looks awfully similar to the other list we looked at, right? No, not this one.
No, it's quite different.
Oh, no. Sorry. Yeah, this is different. This is like a control shell that is running manners as well, right? I don't think we've seen this so far.
Yeah, I mean, this one looks interesting. It's like it doesn't want to win off the back of manners and then just story gain with Goofy and Pirate's Life, and instead it like really tries to protect the manners and set up a board as well. Just have that as like a way to diversify your threats. So I really like the Hades, maybe even more than the Scar in a lot of matchups as a way to sing B prep. So I think as a one-off fits really, really well in this deck. And I don't always get to fit. So when I've been testing Ruby Sapphire, I don't always get to fit in the one ice block. But I do really, really like it because sometimes can be really awkward to have all of these intervals of 2 for your triggers, and a single one can be just enough, especially one that doesn't require you to ink. So I think I really like the one of ice block, but it is not easy to fit it in there because just the space and of the uninkable count. But yeah, I like the look of this list, to be honest.
Yeah, me too, for sure. And then the last list that we're going to take a look at is another Ruby Sapphire list. One of 2 interesting cards here. We could see the Fang Crossbow, which is like obviously in a mirror match for red blue, can have its moments. And the Merlin's Carpet Bag. Have you ever tried to experiment with this Merlin's Carpet Bag, Moyen?
No. Well, I know what it does.
Sure.
But that's about it.
Right.
I guess it is nice if you can play it for free.
Sure.
If I don't get to play it for free, then I'm calling the police and I ask them who put this card into my deck.
Yeah, if you can't play this for free, you better hope you can ink it with Tipo, pretty much. Yep.
Yeah. But okay, so this is, I mean, the crossbow, it's been a tech in the past against against this early Sisu, but also the late Sisus, and I can take it out efficiently at times. And I guess now we have some extra ways to get it back if we have the Merlin's Carpet Bag. Yeah, we won't do it all the time, right? But there's some synergy between those.
Sure.
The one item that is kind of like, okay, I always have to be this like super serious player that tries to optimize everything. But when I'm not, then the one item that I kind of like is the Sword of Truth, because like the Tamatoa is such a huge threat. It is 4 cost and uninkable, but you can set up a lot of tempo with a Sword of Truth and getting it back, banishing it again. Like it can feel really nice. I think one of the big reasons why maybe it's not optimal is because you don't really struggle to deal with the big Tamatoa as much if you're playing a list that plays like Coil. It's like you're probably usually fine against it anyways, but it's kind of one of my pet cards at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say at least it's cool that the player's experimenting with these different items, especially with the Scrooge package, because just having more items in general is better consistency. Obviously, it's not like there's just like other items like even Shield of Virtue and stuff like that, right?
Of Arendelle is kind of decent as well. As a 1-cost inkable item in these colors. Right, but okay, throwback. You remember this episode when I said the small issue with wanting to have a consistent Scrooge is you have to start playing some worse items. And now we look at this list and we see like a Fang Crossbow and a Carpet Bag.
Yep.
So I think that it kind of goes full circle.
Yeah, I think we've come full circle for sure. I mean, the other interesting to note about this list, though, is there's no vision. There's just develop, right? Do you think that's okay, or do you think you really like to see vision in these lists? There's also no B prep on this list, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the list works completely fine, just with Sisu, basically. I think both are valid options. It's like usually 4 Sisu, or maybe like 3 Sisu and 1 or 2 B preps. Those would be like the normal numbers. The develop over the vision is a little bit weird to me, I must say. I can't really quite get behind it. Sometimes I've liked develop as an additional consistency tool to vision, but mostly found vision to be the superior one. So for develop 0 vision is like a very bold statement to me.
Sure. Yeah, and then with that, we're going to move into just briefly talking about the LCCC. So this is your current version of your deck, Moyen, right? Is I can see the Scepter of Arendelle in here. Is that the only change? No, you've made other changes, right? Because previously you teched for the Emerald Steel matchup, right? So I can see that the 4th Cogsworth is back in. Hades is new, I'm guessing, right? Have you managed to fit that in?
Yeah, so I will. So basically, I think if you guys want my deck list that I think is like very well versed against everything, it's the one that I played in round 2. It's like the list that I've been liking no matter what you're facing. Last list I tagged against both Blue Steel and Emerald Steel because those were my possible matchups. So I already had the Hades in, I already had a few Cogsworth in, and Vision to find some of those, but I also had to play Baboons. And now that I knew I was facing Sapphire Steel, I was free to cut the Baboons in favor of more Vision, more Cogsworth, and while still keeping the Hades in. But I still had to make some more room because last round I wasn't playing as many items for consistency. I wasn't playing the last cannon or the scepter. So I also cut the storms, which I'm not incredibly happy about cutting them entirely, but I had to submit it like the night after playing like until 1 a.m. against Zan. So I didn't have like time to test much more, but I was like, okay, I know I'm playing it in Sapphire Steel. I was a slight bit scared that Artabax might go back to aggro, and if I take too much for like the slow Blue Steel Mirror, which that's the deck that they played last round, maybe I can get overrun by like, I don't know, Mickey, Anna, Shift Mickey, Pluto, or like Anna, Alice, Pluto, something like that. So I was definitely scared taking out the Storm, and even in the mirror, there's like one timing that's very, very good for Storm, which is when they play their Flower Charm, you very rarely have that. You very rarely want to hard cast anything to take it out. But when they play the early Flower Charm and you get to sing a Storm Rage on it immediately, that often sets you up very, very well to still be able to take out the Flower Charm when they exert it, even if they like maybe sing one of your characters away. Or maybe I shouldn't talk about this too much if Artabax listening. But so that's the one. That's like the one great use case for Storm. In general, it is not very good in the meta. It's good in the meta. It's not very good in the mirror. But yeah, in these instances were very important in testing. At first, I didn't test the mirror as much, right? But I tested it before I played against Zan, and it's actually a lot more intricate than one might think. And there's a lot of stuff to be found out there as well. And then the Scepter, it's a little bit of a pet card of mine as well. Could have been a second class cannon as well, but in the mirror, like a lot of the time, both players get to have a wider board where I can actually use the Scepter more often than in other matchups. So I do think it's better in this matchup than in others. And yeah, I think it will be completely fine to have it over the second class cannon. But yeah, I do really like both of these items. Okay, yeah, that's about it about my list. Maybe we can look at Artabax's list as well. I'm not quite sure, but I think they were like not on so many.
Did you say they're playing a TikTok? No.
Yeah, there's definitely a TikTok, so we have to look at it.
Do you want to remind people what? Because I say people. Can you also remind me what TikTok is? This just a vanilla card, or what does TikTok do?
Kind of. So the only TikTok that I know is the
Amethyst
6
one.
Cost 4/7
That's
evasive.
what I'm thinking of. I'm like, you told me before the pod, Artabax is on TikTok. I'm like, what? He's switched to Amethyst? What?
Yeah, at first I thought maybe like it was a mistake, but I asked him and he was like, no, I wanted this in my list. It's basically Cerberus. Wait, that's it. It's Cerberus. Okay, no. It's Cerberus, and during your turn, he gains evasive if there's a pirate in play. So against me, it's a Cerberus. So I'm a little bit surprised it made it in there, but I think one very smart inclusion Artabax did was tagging more for the shiny Tamatoa. Because I didn't want to tag too much for it, because the uninkable count or the uninkable Hades can really hurt for a long time of the game. So I only want to play one Hades. He played 2 Hades, but also he wanted to play 2 Let It Go. And now the TikTok is kind of serving as like a 5-drop that can maybe that doesn't get taken out by Zeus. That is really good at contesting a Cogsworth. Like, it makes it very hard for me to exert Cogsworth to gain tempo if a 5/6 can swing back into it. But also, it's an efficient singer for the Let It Go to set up that's hard to deal with. So, like, it's still, of course, I don't know.
I kind of like
hard.
it. I'm sorry. I kind of like the idea of it, honestly, because it's not only it stops your Cogsworth from questing for tempo, but like, if there is no Cogsworth presence, it's also a nice thing that can like hit into a Tamatoa if you decide to exert it, can clear it off, can get out, can hit into Scrooge, can like clear off everything pretty well. And on five, instead of establishing Cogsworth, if they're a little bit more behind on board, maybe, I think it's kind of nice. I don't know. This is just making me laugh thinking back of like the Cerberus days, right? Because like Cerberus back in the day was a good card. It was a good card.
I mean, it was very good stats to set up real. I know I like the creative deck building. I don't mind it. I would say, is there any evasives in blue and steel? So like,
no, you can't. Evasives are only Emerald, Amethyst, and Ruby cards that can be evasive.
Right. It's so the blue steel cards they can be like evasive on your turn but not opposing turn, like the TikTok.
Yeah, anti-evasives. Yeah.
So the biggest thing I dislike about the TikTok is why not play Cerberus? So I think Cerberus would have been more fun.
It would have been funnier. I agree.
I mean, it's sure TikTok. No one's seen the card. It's funny too. But I would have loved to see the Cerberus.
I honestly can't even like when you keep saying TikTok, I can only see the art from the Amethyst card for TikTok. I'll check after the podcast, but
yeah,
it's the card reads is if he has a pirate, right? So I'm assuming. I mean, it would be even funny
if there's a pirate character on the board.
On the board, if anyone controls a pirate character.
Yeah.
Okay, that's quite funny.
But he doesn't play a pirate either.
Yeah, so he doesn't even play Smith. Okay, that is slightly funny, but Cerberus would kind of be funnier. Yeah. Either way, it's interesting. I like the idea of why we play these cards in certain situations. I like it. I think it's still creative deck building, and Also, if you guys didn't know, Artavax. Yes. Artavax and we made it into like the winners bracket final. Mm-hmm.
So that's, I think we're actually, right, DKP is also in. But DKP is also not out yet, so the Germans are doing pretty decent so far.
Yep.
And then, there was also like a small pairing issue, because I think double elimination isn't like the most understood format. Like the players that lost last round were paired already, but then it's fixed now, because in double elimination, the way the bracket works is like the later you lose, you kind of get like a few off rounds, because mathematically otherwise it works out very, very weirdly. But it's fixed now. So Zen and Kurt, who lost their semifinals, now get to like wait a round, and then they play against the winner of the last 4 players in the losers bracket.
Mm-hmm.
And then the winner from those plays against the loser of Artabax and me, and then the winner of that plays against the winner of Artabax and me. And I think we'll only play a single grand final, because that's the one main difference in double elimination tournaments. Sometimes they make it so that the player from the loser bracket actually has to win the final twice to actually win the finals.
That's usually
but I don't think that's what we're doing.
Yeah, because I'm so familiar with double elimination, because we used to have that in Marvel Snap a lot. I played in a double elimination bracket to win a Marvel Snap tournament once, and I had to win twice in the final. So
yeah,
it makes me feel like I earned it even more, but I can understand why they decide not to do it.
Yeah, I mean that's just how it works. I also remember one where like lost first round, and then suddenly I had to like win 10 to face someone who just went 5-0.
Yeah,
something like that. But that's just how it goes.
So it goes. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this week. I don't know if there's any other major tournaments happening. I was excited to see the results from this spring league event, because I knew it was going to be a pretty big event. Like 400 players is nothing to turn your head up, to be honest. I'm sure there's going to be some more big events happening over in the States, as there always are. 3Ks, 5Ks, all that type of stuff happening. But it's going to be it's not set champs season soon. That's May. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it will be getting close to Reign of Jafar reveal season, I imagine, for at least the start. So to close out this week's episode, Moyen, is there anything that you would like to see from Reign of Jafar in general? I know it's a bit of an open question. I mean, I think everyone's expecting a few more Vanish cards. We were teased with, there's only 3 Vanish cards within the game currently, and there's that Amethyst, Steel, Jafar that synergize with Vanish cards, but there's only 3 Vanish cards to play. So my first initial guess is sure, there's going to be more Vanish cards. I don't know if there's much else that's going to come from it, but I'm still excited. You know, I hope. I mean, you know what? I hope for every reveal season, Moyen, give me
some
one
aggro Ember Emerald cards. That's what you want.
Absolutely not. No.
Some more puppies.
No, man.
GG.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Not.
So what do I want from next set? I think.
If you say more, bro. If you say more, like good Sapphire cards, I'm gonna lose it, bro.
How about?
Can I have a zero? Can I have a turn 1 like 4/4 quest for 1? That's what you're gonna say now, yeah.
That's with Singer 3.
Yep.
Okay, no. What do I want? I want lots of cards to be playable. None of them to be completely broken. Have a lot of tools to build decks, and then outside of that, I guess some more illusions could be cool. But the one I'm definitely hoping for would be more dual color cards, because they didn't really hit this set. I think the mechanic is great. I think it can be used to give colors a lot of support that really need it, and like push them in a certain direction. I think most of the dual color cards that we've had this set didn't really achieve that, so I would love to see, I guess, some better, more promising dual color cards.
I agree. That's cool. Yeah, I don't know if they will do more dual color cards. I know that's something people have asked. And
how many do we have now for like each color combination?
4 for each color combination. There's one that's like they say is like a little bit like unique, and then 3 that are supposed to kind of synergize with the idea of it.
Okay.
I'm going to pose a question to you, Moyen, and to our viewers, because I think this would be a really interesting topic to discuss next week while we're in a little bit of a dry spell for competitive content. If you could design a new card type for Disney Lorcana, what would it be? I think we could get some really cool comments. So guys, if you've made it this far into the episode, please comment down below of a new card type. What would be a new card type that you would design for Disney Lorcana? Feel free to take inspiration from other card games, like for example the idea of like planeswalkers from Magic. I always like the design aspect of those. I think stuff like that could be cool for Lorcana. Anything besides, we all know how OP the Moyen sensor core is.
No, you took it away. I wanted to say the sensor cores.
Just Moyen sensor. It's a whole new card type, right? I guess that is technically, I mean, I don't think this would be great design, to be honest, but these passive,
when you start with them each game.
Yeah, I mean, Hearthstone had cards like that, right? Like there were like cards in Hearthstone that would be kind of dead. There'd be like a 7-cost 5/6 that did nothing except at the start of the game like have like this pretty impactful effect.
Oh right, yeah, it was like, but those were like deck building restrictions. Like if all of them are even cost, your hero power costs 1 less, something like that.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, I think, I guess it doesn't have to be planeswalkers. It could be either planeswalkers or like something like a big character that kind of has like a static ability that changes how you play the game. That could be fun. Like something that makes one of my characters like stand out for the way I play the game. Which I guess planeswalkers would achieve that too.
Something I find interesting as a type of card, but I've definitely seen like the advantages and the disadvantages of it from a game like Star Wars Unlimited that I play are like attachment cards or upgrade cards. So the idea of these cards are always interesting, where like, let's say it's just like a card that you can put onto a character and it gives it like +1 strength or +1 willpower. The idea of those are cool, and there's lots of different things you can do, but I mean, maybe it's just the type of meta that it isn't in Star Wars at the moment, but there are so many cards that I don't know how it would interact in Lorcana, but like, let's say you put like this like attachment or this upgrade on the card, and then your opponent bounces it, then that upgrade just like kind of like disappears, or like, you know what I mean, disintegrates or whatever.
Maybe in Lorcana you still get it back, like cards
goes back to the hand. Well, we've kind of seen that for like the shifting stuff. Yeah, that would make it more. It would definitely make it more powerful. But I don't know. Like that's an idea that would be interesting to explore, because then suddenly you've got like this card that not only is it going to give it stats, but like it could like attached card gets +1/+1 and ward and evasive stuff like this. So
sure,
it's cool. It's cool design space, but the problem is I just don't know how good it would be, right?
Or just in general, I don't know how, but maybe if the rules stay the same, print some cards that are better on the draw. Like, for example,
Like the hey hey
that we have.
I like that. Yeah. For sure. Yeah, well, with that, as I said, everyone comment down below. Leave us some cool ideas to discuss for next week. If you guys enjoyed this episode of the podcast, be sure to leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your local podcast platform. There is a video version of this available over on youtube.com/@PodcanaPodcast. Hit the subscribe while you're there. Twitters are @Moyen_HS and @Kawatech_CG. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week.